Alright, so this is going to be another art student diary chapter. So what I'm dealing with today, let me go ahead and show you the art stuff I'm working on. I warmed up with 45 minutes of cat stuff out of my head. And these are basically what I do is I take what is my current idea of a cat and how far can I take it without any reference. And a lot of them look terrible, and that's okay. Because what it is, it's an assessment. It's a way to warm up, and it's assessment of where the gaps in my knowledge are. And then this is another 45 minutes of just doing cats from reference. And so I'm working from reference and learning, what are the differences between the idea I have of a cat and the real cats. So a lot of times I'll draw my heads too wide from imagination. And let's see what else. I need to draw the eyes bigger, I think. In a lot of these pictures I'm seeing, the eyes are bigger than I have them. But also the butterfly shape of the whisker bed, like how it's kind of like a butterfly shape where it's these two parts. How would you make a cat? And then also one thing I didn't have in my drawings was I had more of a triangular frontal plane, but in the like a triangle here in the frontal plane, so like on the forehead. But in a lot of these cats, there's like a parallel, like a rectangular shape. See, it's almost like it goes here from the forehead, and then it points. So it goes down, in, and points to the nose. So the nose is like this, and then it goes out a bit, and then it goes up to the forehead, like this. Kind of like we have. But imagine if your nose was wider, like this. That would be like a cat nose. So a cat nose is like this. And then they have that, their frontal plane is like, it goes straight back like this, kind of. And I need to do some more profile views. The profile view for a cat is pretty tricky. One thing I noticed in my imagination ones, the ones I did from imagination, is, see, I do these really big rounded noses, which isn't how, actually it's kind of like this one that I did. This one. That's kind of what I was going for, but that seems to be the view from the top. But I don't think that's how it looks for a lot of cats. For a lot of cats, it is that pointing like this. But for some cats, maybe it is more of that hourglass kind of a shape where it comes out and then goes in. But that might just be the top view. I'm gonna have to study that some more and see what's going on there. When I look at the different types of cats, it seems like a lot of the differences come down to how pointy their ears are. They've got, let's see if I can tilt my camera up a bit. Whether they're very pointy, everything's reversed, so it's kind of screwing me up. But very pointy ears. You can also have rounder ears. You can have pointy ears with a little bit of rounded tips, or you can have very sharp tips. It also, in like a snow leopard or something, you're going to have a lot of fluff on the ears, a lot of fluffiness. And a lot of times the fluff will... Well, actually, one observation I would say is usually have like some fur coming out of the cheeks. That's going to be important in defining a likeness. Whether the cat has like some big sideburns coming out like this, that'll change the shape of the head. See, in this one, it seems fluffier. This one's really fluffy. And then this one's much cleaner, like that mountain lion, puma type of cat. They don't have all that hair coming out the sides. And same with this one. I think that's a mountain lion or something like that. So it seems like the amount of hair is really important because it contributes to the shape of the face. It seems like overall the angle of the eyes is tilted. It's not like this. Like human eyes will be like this. But cats are more like this, right? From point to point. So the cat eyes are more like like this, like this, where you see the point to point from the tear duct to the outer edge of this eye. That the angle is more upward. They also tend to have some type of pattern around their eyes, whether it's a lighter around the eyes or darker around the eyes. Usually they'll have like something white underneath the eyes, but sometimes they'll have like a black pattern, but some type of patterning around the eyes seem to be common. They also, a lot of these seem to have black spots or some type of patterning at like the tips of their ears, like here. So on the tips of their ears, they seem to have some type of patterning. Usually there's some indication of, well, there's like these, it seems like there's these stripes on a lot of these where in the whisker bed, it has these 3 stripes. So it's like 1, 2, 3. And these stripes are, let me see if I can do this on a little scrap sheet of paper. The stripes go like this. They're not just stripes. They're stripes of little dots, see? So they'll be like little dots. It'll be like doop, 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 and they'll go with the form, so they'll be curved. And then the whiskers come out like that. And these whiskers are long because we're going to be sensing with our whiskers, and we're going to be feeling. And we're going to be detecting movement with those, I believe is their use. Is that they're for detecting and feeling. And that seems to be what I learned from my morning session of cats. One other thing I noticed is that a lot of times that little chin, so they'll have the butterfly shape here, right? The butterfly shape here, and then their chin will oftentimes be very furry and fuzzy. Like the bone might not be that substantial, but the fur gives it a really rounded, often projected feel. If you ever look at the tiger in the Jungle Book, Shere Khan, I think is his name. His chin looks like it's really jutted out because of all that fur. So he's got this really prominent jaw. And that can really help contribute to the look of the cat. So just because it's not made of bone and muscle, just because it's not made of the hard stuff, doesn't mean that it's not characteristic to the form. So a lot of times we'll think it's not just that the structure is what gives us the likeness. The structure, the skeleton, and the muscles are absolutely essential to giving it a sense of groundedness and realism and believability. But it's not going to give it the likeness necessarily. Think about a lion. A lion, you can get all the musculature and stuff, but for a male lion, until you have that mane, it's not really going to be a male lion. And same with a tiger. A tiger doesn't look like a tiger. A tiger pretty much looks like the same as a lion without skin. But then, until you add stripes, it doesn't look like a tiger. A tiger doesn't look like a tiger without stripes. And same for something like a fox. I mean, think of a fox without that characteristic tail. So a lot of times that characterism, the strong character of an animal, I think, is going to come from the dressing, the icing on the cake, which is... But I wonder if it's a good idea to draw that stuff as you're drawing the gesture, to draw the lion's mane, to draw the fox's tail, and not just draw it in stages of skeleton, muscle, but maybe in the gestural stage to capture the fluff of the tail and the flow of the mane. I think that's going to be probably the best approach because it's so important to describing what you're seeing. I think including that stuff in the gesture is going to be a good idea going forward rather than just taking a strictly skeletal approach to the gesture or a musculoskeletal, which would be muscular and skeleton. Skeletal. So while anatomy and structure are important, they're not everything, especially if you are beginning to get into issues of likeness and you want to describe a specific animal. You do need to start getting into not necessarily rendering, but at least indicating the structures that are created by superficial structures like hair and manes. Hair and like on a snake would be like the scales, right? If you don't have scales on a snake, it might resemble a sock. So anyway, that's just what I'm kind of thinking about with these. I've still got another at least 2 more sessions of 45 minutes because I like to get up to 3 hours on Saturdays. If I want to do more, I'm allowed to, but I just want to get another 45 minutes of focused work from observation. Just working on these cats today. I'm at number 71 out of 100 on my 100 mammal challenge. So doing that, and then I'm going to see what the next 100 drawing challenge will be after that. But that's going to be, I'm going to decide that after I'm done with this and I figure out what I want to learn more about, because maybe I'll go into 100 cats, or maybe I'll do 100 horses or something like that. But I'm going to wait and see what I want to work on. The only other things to say about cats is that, remember, they have fur on top of their noses, right? Whereas dogs, they have a shape that's like this for dogs. I'm going to draw it out here on this sheet of paper. See, for a dog, the nose is going to be like that kind of a shape, where it's a triangular wedge, and you can see the top right here. You can see the top plane. But on a cat, it's going to be more like this, where you don't see the top of the nose. So that's one big difference. On the dog, you'll see the top of the nose, and on the cat, you won't see the top of the nose because it's covered by fur. So those are my thoughts on what I've learned about cats so far today in just 45 minutes. I think what I want to do more of with these videos is analyzing what makes an animal look like an animal, and actually analyzing what I'm doing and what my drawings lack, what I need to work on. And in that same, on the same train of thought, let's think about, okay, what do I want to do? What's my intent for this next 45 minutes? Well, I think one thing I want to work more on is loosening up as I start the drawings, because what's happening in a lot of these is I'm going in too hard. See that ear? I'm committing too early. It's like I'm overextending, and I'm getting too hard too fast with the I'm committing too quickly to and putting in these hard lines and really committed to, rather than doing it light and loose and doing a more gestural feel, and gradually I tighten up and tighten up and tighten, and sort of like I'm sculpting the form and gradually weaving it together rather than just going hard from the start. But the problem with going hard from the start is you commit to things that aren't even right. I think you can get away with it when you're a really experienced artist and you can be sure that the marks you're making are correct. But I think for where I am right now, I tend to get better results when I start really loose and general and I work my way towards the specific. What's happening in, like, especially in like this one, for instance, is I'm committed. I'm hyper focused on these features, like the shape of the ear, the shape of the eyes, and the shape of the nose. And then, but I'm not thinking enough about the shape of the head as a whole, and I'm not sculpting the forms of the face. So instead of thinking about this eye, my eye, as, oh, it's a line with a circle, and then the bottom line, right? Don't think of them as lines, but thinking of them as, here's a sphere, right? Here's, what would you call this? It's like I don't even know how you would describe the ear. It's kind of like a semicircle. Or it's like it could be more spherical. It could be like it's flat and it's sticks out like this, and you can stretch it, and then it's so it's like a C-shaped, it's kind of like I don't even know how you would describe this. It's kind of like a seashell shape or something that sticks onto the side of this ball, and then the sides of the balls are flattened, and then you come into front and you have this plane for the frontal bone of the head, and you can see these corners here, so we'd want to indicate those corners as our head turns the corner, see? And then we have the sockets of the eyes, so we have the brow here, and we want to indicate that we're coming through the brow, this drops into here, and then we have the socket, and the eyeball, see here? This eyeball sits inside this socket. So these are the things that I want to start thinking about when I'm drawing these cats, is thinking of it more sculpturally. This is just a triangle, like a pyramid shape, see? and you're thinking about these three-dimensional shapes. You're not thinking about, oh, here's a line, and here's a line, and here's a line. The lines will emerge as you define the shapes. So you're thinking about these major forms. And this you can do on your own. Just like go around, touch various parts of your body. Don't get too dirty with it, but just feel the shapes, feel the planes. And this is kind of what you want to do as you're drawing, is feeling your way through the form. Just feel, oh, this is my jaw. My jaw hinges from this ball. My jaw is more like a triangle with a flat bottom. And then I've got a digastric plane, which is under here. So it's not just that the jaw is this line and this line. No, there's also a plane under here. There's a plane here. There's a plane here. There's a plane here. Think about breaking the face up into these flat planes. Plane here, plane here, plane here. And this is a cylinder. This neck is just a cylinder. And then we go down. This is maybe more of a box idea, right? So we're just going through, and then we have the sternocleidomastoid muscle that comes down to the pit of the neck. Then we come out to the clavicle, and we're just defining these forms, right? The trapezius is more like a cylinder shape, right? But we're working our way up to the form. So we'll start with these big forms of the neck, and then we'll do as we get so big form of the neck, big form of the head, right? And then whittle it down, start carving into, okay, maybe we get the eye sockets, maybe we get the nose, maybe we get the ball of the mouth. Then maybe we carve out these specific shapes here. But we're starting with the big and working our way down to the small. We've got to get the gesture first, then we've got to get the structure, and then we build the anatomy within the structure. So the stuff is all working together. And we go in the proper order, because if we commit to the anatomy too early, it's in the wrong place. If we commit to the structure too early, there's not a sense of flow and movement, and we've just got a bunch of disjointed, our people will look like this, right, really stiff, and maybe the neck, it looks like a cylinder, but it's like totally stiff. Whereas if you add gesture, maybe it's more natural, right? But if we tend to, if we go to construction too early, we end up with people like this, right? So we want to get that, that natural sense of flow. It's like the difference between people who pose awkwardly for a picture, and people who are just more natural in how you hang out, right? Just hanging out with your friends. And if you think about the difference between people posing for a photo and the difference between if you're just talking with your friends and laughing, that's so funny, man. And and then snapping a picture of someone in natural conversation. All right. And then the difference between those two things, whether you're posing someone very stiff, and the same thing with animals. Are you posing your animals very stiff? Are you missing that gesture? Right? But you don't want to get too gestural. You do want to understand the structure, and you need to incorporate the gesture with the structure. Those are the two things that Steve Houston talks about, is gesture is flow and water and life and organic, while structure is it's form, it's architectural, it's structure is it's putting things into, it's giving things dimension and rounding them out and bulking them up and giving them authority and making them bulky, and it takes the gesture and makes it more real and believable and solid. So you want to think about those two opposing and working together forces. It's like the yin and the yang. You need that structure and you need that gesture. Too much structure and you get stiff and too rigid and things that aren't full of life. And without structure, you have gestures that might look beautiful, but if you want to take them further, you can't build anatomy on top of something if it doesn't have the structure. So yeah, that's kind of how I would think about it. You can have gestures that look beautiful, but they're not going to be fully realized. You can't take a gesture all the way to the finish just with gesture. You need gesture and then structure. I mean, you could just leave a gesture as is, but if you want to take a drawing further and get to that stage of anatomy, if you want to take a tiger, if you want to draw a fully rendered tiger, you can't do that just with gesture. You can make a nice gesture of a tiger, but if you want to put it in a believable scene, you're going to need that structure, especially if you want to pose it in different positions and then you need to understand simple forms so you can rotate those simple forms in space, right? Because if you can only copy a picture of something, you understand it in the 2D, but you won't understand that this head, if you understand this head as an egg, if you understand that, if you look at this screen and you just memorize the flat shapes, then you can draw me like this. But that's all you can do. But if you understand the egg, like the head as a box or a cylinder or a egg, and you can rotate an egg in space, well, then you can take my head in your mind, and instead of memorizing the flat shapes, instead of memorizing a bunch of poses, like maybe you memorize a person like this, and then you memorize a person like this, and you memorize these snapshots, that's one way of operating. But if you can combine that with also understanding the head as an egg, then you can turn it all around. And you can do that with, maybe you can stretch it out. Maybe you can stretch the egg a little bit higher. Maybe you can stretch the egg a little bit wider. It gives you a freedom to manipulate forms. But that's just me talking about art for the day. That's my art student diary. Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Peter Jackson Anton, same as my YouTube. And yeah, it's gonna happen. We're gonna make it to that to the promised land of being a professional artist and making a living with it, and just enjoying the journey along the way. And because at the end of the day, if we're not enjoying art, well, why are we artists and why are we making a living at this? And the whole reason we're making a living with this because we wanted to do something we loved for a living. All right, so let's make sure to enjoy the process and really draw what we love drawing, and train hard, but enjoy that training, and make sure you're fueling your artist fire and nurturing your inner child, and remembering the reasons that you got into art in the first place. So with that, we're going to take a deep breath. And let's go draw.